Hey, so it's winter and our Japanese maples are all asleep. They're all dormant. And if they're in the ground, we pretty much don't have to worry about them. Maybe at your lower extremes of your growing zones, you're going to be protecting them um, with burlap, that kind of thing. Very, very coldest zones where it might be a little borderline during those coldest temperatures. But generally speaking, if they're in the ground, you don't have to worry about them for the winter. Now, different story. If you look around me here, we've got all these container plants and they're not in the ground. Now, generally speaking, a lot of people will say, oh, if it's in a container, then you got to take that one zone down. So if you live in a zone 7 in Canada and you have a tree in a container, generally then you might be looking at that as a zone 6B or 6A. So it's a different sort of scenario than having that sort of maintenance-free Japanese maple planted in the ground. So what do you do in the wintertime with your trees in your pots? So that's a good question. So um, for us, we don't have the luxury of taking all these container trees and, putting them up close to the house. But for you as a Japanese maple grower or home gardener, if you have a handful of trees that are in containers, one of the things you can do is just bring them up close to your house in more of a sheltered location through the winter. Um, Another thing is you could put them in an unheated garage, unheated greenhouses, places where they're kind of sheltered for some of that wind and those extremes of temperature. You can mulch them heavily, so that could involve putting them in the ground in their pot, putting straw on top of that or hay, um, different things like that. So there's any number of ways to protect your trees and pots through the winter. Now, one thing I want to talk about real quick is watering. Now, believe it or not, if they're in a container, they're going to need water. They are going to dry out in the wintertime. Now, you don't have to go out there like it's summertime and water them every 2 days or 3 days or whatever, but you do need to give them a bit of water. And that's going to vary. So there's no magic number that I can provide you because that's going to vary depending on your location and the type of weather you have. But so, for example, I just watered these trees here today. It's the end of January, and when we get warmer temperatures, they do dry out, and even in just cold temperatures, they're drying out. So it's something you have to be aware of, and something you have to get to. So yeah, just even a little bit. It's not going to be like the same amounts in your summer period of growing season, but it is going to be some. And some of that water is going to afford that tree protection um, when you get into those really, really cold snaps. So something to keep in mind of. I think what I'm going to do here is we'll do another video at some time in the future here and really touch on some of these things more. But just a heads up. So if you've got that tree, it's sitting on your porch and it hasn't had any water all winter, don't hesitate to go out there and give it a bit of water. So again, less than you're going to give it in the summertime when it's during the growing season, but just a little bit of water to stave off some of that cold because it is drying out. So anyways, so yeah, some of the things that you have to deal with when you've got your trees in containers. Yeah, what else can I say about that? Protection from animals, that's another thing as well. You might have deer, rabbit, elk, other things like that. Around here we have deer and elk as well as wild turkeys. So there's a whole array of species that are trying to look for a bit of food during those winter months. So unfortunately, with your trees, it's not just place them, forget them. If they're in the ground again, they're kind of on their own for the most part. But if they're in a pot, then we have to take those special precautions. Like I said, some watering every now and again, potentially bring them to warmer locations, and protection from animals. So those are some of the things that you're looking at with your winter trees in the pots. Anyways, just recently we updated the website inventory, so you can find new trees. We're not quite open for sales for a little bit, probably another month or so here, late February, maybe early March. But you can start perusing and see what we have for the upcoming season. And that's simplyjapanesemaples.ca. Like and subscribe the video, please. And that helps us get discovered. And until next time.